I'm not giving up on Drew Smyly. I think the Cubs really have to have him to be able to get to the playoffs, win the division, all the things that they want to accomplish. It's going to take him being a part of it to help him get there. But I just think that he needs rest.
The rock and roll doesn't hit quite as well on a Tuesday after a long rain delay and after the Cubs lose 11-2 to the New York Mets. This is the Cubs Baseball Channel with Mick Gillespie. I'm Chuck Walter. These struggles are real right now for Drew Smyly. He's not smiling. He's been frowning in the second half of the season. The ERA has ballooned up to over 5, an 8.37 ERA in his 5 games since the All-Star break. And that poses the big question for today. It seems like the Cubs need another arm in the rotation because Drew Smyly, who's been a really good pitcher throughout his career, just doesn't seem like he has it this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had it at the beginning of the season. And don't forget, I mean, he was knocking on the door of a perfect game. And when you look over his last 15 starts, he's not bad. It's over the last 6 starts that things really kind of come off the rails for him. And last night, watching the polar bear take him deep twice, it was really hard for him to overcome that. And, you just kind of felt like when that 3-run homer happened for Pete Alonso in the first inning, like, hey, this just isn't going to be the Cubs' day. And that's what Drew Smyly's kind of looked at the last few times out.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is the Cubs Baseball Channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment on the video. We're giving away a Ryan Sandberg autographed baseball once we hit 1,000. We are right on the cusp. Let's get there today. If you're watching the video right now, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It takes about 5 seconds, and you enter the mix to win that baseball. So Drew Smyly has been really bad. What are the options here? Do you keep throwing him out there until eventually he rectifies things? Or do you potentially look to the minors? It's someone that's maybe more of a journeyman in AAA. Give him a look.
Yeah, it's a good question. You're already without Marcus Stroman. And I love the comment section. Keep them coming. There's been a debate whether Marcus Stroman was the Cubs' best starter or if it's Justin Steele. I mean, that's like 1A and 1B right at the beginning of the year. But when Stroman was healthy at the start of the season, he was fantastic, just like Steele has been. The issue that the Cubs have right now is that there aren't a lot of options, especially with Marcus Stroman already on the IL, right? So Javier Assad stepped up and he hit that spot. Hayden Wieneski's another guy you could possibly throw in there, right? But I mean, he hasn't been fantastic, but he's been okay. Caleb Killian is someone that the Cubs traded. He was part of the deal that they sent Chris Bryant to the Giants for. And he's been really good in the minor leagues. We saw him pitch yesterday in relief, but it just hasn't all come together in the big leagues yet as a starter. Maybe it's him. But outside of that, this is the biggest complaint I have about the Cubs right now is that their lack of player development and starting pitching. And you go out and you draft pitchers early in the draft and you expect those guys to be able to come and contribute at the big league level, like Ryan Jensen, who they drafted in the first round out of Fresno State. He's got good stuff, but now he's in the bullpen in AAA and he's not a starter anymore. You would want that guy to be there and in these roles, right? So I don't know that there's someone that we were talking about Chris Clark maybe being someone, he's not on your prospect list, but he's a starter in AAA. And who knows, maybe if you give him a chance, he goes to the big leagues and throws strikes like Assad and all of a sudden he gets on the radar. Cam Sanders is another guy who was a starter and now you got him in the bullpen and he's another guy that throws 97, 99 miles an hour, can mix up his pitches. He can be really good at times, but hasn't developed as a starter, and now he's not a starter anymore. So I just don't feel like when I look at where we're at right now, Cade Horton's probably your best pitching prospect. He's the number 2 overall prospect. He's in AA, and he just got there. He was a first-round pick last year. Yeah, he is coming. And, eventually he's going to be ready. He comes to Double-A and he pitches 4 innings and throws 57 pitches. That's not a big league start. That's not a start. That's just 4 innings and a tip of the cap, So that it goes back to me to saying, hey, for 10 years or really since, Theo Epstein took over and then now Jed Hoyer doing the same thing, like they're so worried about getting guys hurt that they're not developing starting pitching. And when you look at teams like the Braves, who just seem to always have 1 or 2 guys that are able to step up and fill the role when this happens, the Cubs are really depleted in that area, and I'm not sure what the options are outside of the guys that I just said.
Patrick Mooney from The Athletic was talking about how Ben Brown could potentially be an option at some point this year, but you would think maybe a bullpen stint with how he's been doing in AAA in terms of going 4 or 5 innings, seemingly every start, never being stretched out past 85 pitches. It seems like I'm looking at that monitor behind you. What are the chances Henry Rowan Gardner's in the bleachers?
Yeah, look, Ben Brown's on the IL right now. He's a strikeout machine, and but until he's back and healthy, then he's not an option. So, and it's a shame too, because this would have been a really good time to throw him to the Wolves and see what he can do. But yeah, look, 30 years ago, Rookie of the Year came out. Henry Rowan Gardner came to Wrigley this year. We saw him at the Smokies last year. I got his bobblehead doll. Really, it was a bobble arm doll. But yeah, maybe there's someone like him that we can just go find off a playground. And, he's throwing like 100 miles an hour, and we'll just put him into the game. Were you a fan of that movie?
Henry Rowan Gardner. Oh, love the movie. It's fantastic. Daniel Stern, incredible. Gary Busey is Chet Steadman, loves his Salisbury steak. Incredible movie. Cubs could definitely use someone like Rowan Gardner, not from the bleachers, but in the system that comes in. You're not expecting him to do a lot, and he just comes in and really fills a void. Unfortunately, based on what you're saying, it doesn't sound like they have that due to the starting pitching developments over the years.
Yeah, got to get better. They've got to get better in that area. I mean, they've shown an ability to develop really good everyday starting players at other positions and guys
and
that can
relievers.
And relievers too, right? But I think part of it is that they're so stuck on the analytics. And there's a lot of people that feel like I feel. There's people that are going to watch this and go, hey, I'm just the guy saying it, because I think some people feel uncomfortable kind of voicing their displeasure with the way that some of these pitchers are developed. And I'd say that's an educated guess. And I'm hoping that, someone hears this and says, you know what, maybe we need to look at people differently than we do analytics. We're all different. And the things that we all do and bring to the table are different from one person to another, so you try to throw a blanket over there with analytics and it just doesn't work. I mean, you have to take it case by case. And I don't know that that's being done right now. And I can tell you this, the bottom line is that, you look over the last 12 years or so, and there hasn't been a whole lot of pitching developed in the starting ranks. And if the Cubs had 1 or 2 guys that they could drop into this role right now and be able to just rest guys like Drew Smyly, this team would have a much better chance at really performing when the playoffs come around. All right, one question before we change the subject, though, when it comes to the Rookie of the Year. Give me your 2 favorite baseball movies.
2 favorite baseball movies.
I'll tell you mine while you're thinking. Honestly, number 1 is Major League. Number 2 is Bull Durham.
Okay. Number 1 is Major League. I think that's a given. There's a lot that I could slide in there for number 2. And Rookie
Willie
of the
Mays
Year,
Hayes. Who is your favorite guy? Willie Mays Hayes, Ricky Vaughn.
Ricky Vaughn, Wild Thing for sure. I'd say my number 2 movie though, and this is a bit of a wild card, and it's based in Chicago. Hardball.
Oh wow,
baby! I loved Hardball.
Did you?
Hardball. Oh, great. I mean, I don't know if it was actually a great movie, but it was kind of that cultural phenomenon for '90s kids growing up watching G Baby and Jefferson and Keanu Reeves just as a degenerate gambler who's throwing $50,000 on the Bulls spread every night. So, that was good stuff. Here's the good news about the Cubs pitching staff right now. When healthy, you're talking about a potentially 3-man rotation in October if you can get there. Marcus Stroman, Justin Steele, James Taillon. Looks pretty good on paper if you can get there, and if James Taillon can continue what he's been doing. Let's before we get to James, I'm going to give you one more question on Drew Smyly. What's his turn in the rotation like moving forward? How many of these starts they going to give him before it's time to pull the plug and go with someone else?
Well, look, I think there's some good news coming. And first off, tonight's game is the 15th of 16 without a day off, right? But they're going to be off after this series, and then they're going to be off after the series with Toronto. So they got a couple of off days coming, and that will allow guys to get some rest. I'm not giving up on Drew Smyly. I think the Cubs really have to have him to be able to, get to the playoffs, win the division, do all the things that it's going to take them, all the things that they want to accomplish. It's going to take him being a part of it to help him get there. But I just think that he needs rest. I mean, he just looks tired, and a lot of these guys, you're talking about the dog days of summer right now, man. I mean, we're in August, and this is a really long stretch without any days off. But, this is also the time of year where if you had another guy you could drop in just to kind of extend those days off in the rotation, you're going to be better off for it as you get to the stretch run. So I'm not ready to give up on him yet. And I think that eventually with some rest, he'll finish strong.
I know it was a seller's market, but it almost makes you wish a little bit that maybe they went out and got themselves not a top of the line starter, but maybe they went out and got themselves a Justin Verlander to help down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it would have been a big price. And I think long term, if you're the Cubs, what they did at the trade deadline to me works with where this team is right now. They keep on winning and good things can happen, but you don't want to give away one of the best farm systems in baseball. I think that what we're going to see is over the next year or so, we're going to see a lot of these guys that are in the minor leagues right now that are putting up great numbers, pushing for spots on the big league team. And that competition's only going to make the Cubs a lot better.
All right, let's go back to James Taillon. What are you looking forward to seeing from him tonight? He's been really good over his last few.
Yeah, look, he's totally turned it around, and he's another guy who has dealt with some injuries over the years, and that was the knock on the Cubs when they gave him a 4-year contract. Which guy were they going to get, the healthy Jameson Taillon, or were they going to get the guy who struggled with injuries? And we've seen both of those guys this year, but he goes into New York and whoops up on his own old team, the Yankees, and he's been rolling ever since. So, I feel like the way that this team's played of late, he's the perfect guy to get the start in New York. He used to be on the Yankees. He gets the whole deal in the city. And I think that where the Cubs are right now, this is the guy that you'd want on the mound in a game like this.
Big one for the Cubs tonight against the New York Mets after losing Monday's game 11-2. Did want to ask you about the tarp situation real quick and that long rain delay. It's interesting because I'm currently in the Bay Area, and I lived in the Bay Area for a couple of years. And in California, as you know, Mick, it does not rain. There are just no rain delays. So you get back to the Midwest and watch some of these games, or in the Northeast, and you see a rain delay like that that's 3-4 hours long, and you're just like, damn, I forgot about these. Thoughts on it?
Yeah, look, I mean, and what happens is the way that this works is that the team before the game gets to decide when the tarp goes on and off. But once the game starts, it's up to the umpires to figure out when they want to put the tarp on and off, and there were some really bad storms that blew through the area, not just in New York, but all the way up the coast yesterday. And they probably should have got the tarp on a little earlier than they did, and guys playing through the rain and it wasn't getting better. But, it's hard for me to really criticize the umpires. I mean, you're running out there with, a cell phone and you're showing these guys, or maybe they go in and they got a monitor. They got to figure out like what the weather's going to do. I feel like at the beginning of a series like this, you got to be a little quicker with the tarp than say if it was the last game of the series and you didn't have a game the next day, because the field conditions could get messed up. But the big debate on that yesterday, and it kind of felt like a little bit of a debacle. And I think if you ask most people that were watching, they weren't real happy with the way that the umpires asked for the tarp to go on the field or played through the rain.
All right, we have a contest, Mick. A little contest, aside from the Ryan Sandberg autographed baseball that we're giving away to a lucky fan. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, me and you, mano a mano, tonight's game, Who's hitting a home run for the Chicago Cubs? I'll get the odds later. And leave your comments. I want to hear who you're taking first.
I love this. Like, this is the best part about having, gambling legal pretty much in, most of the country, or at least the overwhelming majority, is that you get to play games like this, right? And I've never bet on baseball, but on this show, I'll do it just for me and you. I think Cody Bellinger. I mean, look, I saw the way that he swung the bat last night. He is back. I mean, he is back. His hand-eye coordination is there. He looks a little bit taller at the plate than he did in the past. He's just on top of it, and it doesn't matter what you're throwing at him. He's the toughest out in the lineup. So, I mean, look, I'm going to take the easy out today and say Bellinger homers.
You're probably getting about plus 250 odds or something like that without seeing it. I haven't even seen the lineup card, so I don't even know if he's playing today, but I would imagine he's at one of the corner positions. I'm going with Jeimer Candelario. Candelario hits a home run, and according to one of our viewers in the comments, you actually pronounce it Jeimer Candelario. So
yeah, it's not, though. And look, the funny thing about him is that I've known him since he really got into baseball. And his pronunciation of his name's changed 3 different times. And I think that happens over the course of time, because I think that sometimes we just say, hey, it's this, but it is Jeimer. Some guys that have the same exact spelling would say Heimer because the J is a H sound, but not to him. So it's Jeimer Candelario. That's what he's going with. And I think it's great. The toughest one of those ever was Alcantara, who is actually Alcantara. And he said to me, he's like, look, I don't care if you call me Alcantara or Alcantara. And I'm talking about the guy that was a shortstop for the Cubs in, 2016, 15 times, like a former prospect, not the guy that's in the mind. Arismendi. Yeah. I'm talking about Arismendi, and not, I think his name's Kelvin. I think he's or Kevin. Yeah. So different guys, but it's just funny. Look, my name is Gillespie. Some people call me Gillespie, and it's just the way that it is, right? So it's not the end of the world. But
I've been saying Candelario this entire time. I know that his name is Candelario. I just continue to say.
But that's what we used to call him. But it's Candelario. That's what
it's Calipari. It's Calipari. Is the
I'm
right
telling
way.
you that he wants to be called Candelario. That's what I was told. Everybody calls him Candelario, but it was Candelario when he played for the Smokies. So I mean, whatever it is, I don't care. I'm fine with whatever it is. I'll tell you what, though, I love the guy. I'm so glad to see him back and the spark that he brings. And it's really cool to see a guy come back home after starting his organization with the Cubs and then moving on.
Well, guess what? He hits a home run tonight. And if you think a Cubs player is hitting a home run, leave it down in the comments. Hey, maybe we give you a little prize if you're victorious. We up your Ryan Sandberg autographed baseball chances from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 998 or something. So be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we will see you tomorrow.
Hey, one more thing, Charlie, before we get off, I got to bring this up. Postseason schedule came out today, October 3rd, best of 3 wild card series starts. You think the Cubs are there or not?
I think they are. Cincinnati right now is reeling a bit. I think the Reds are set up as well as anyone in this division to be a great team for many years to come with the young talent that they have. But the pitchers in this league right now are catching up to their hitting abilities and starting to throw pitches in the dirt to guys like Elly De La Cruz. I still think Matt McClain is really solid right now. Spencer Steer, very solid. Will Benson having a career year. But you look at the pitching and not knowing if Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo are going to come back at all, or how sharp they're going to be when they come back. Cincinnati just does not have the pitching to compete. The Cubs have a better lineup from top to bottom, a little more season in there. So I like them to beat Cincinnati. Milwaukee's the team that worries me because of those pitchers that they have, but the Cubs are right there. It's going to come down to some head-to-head matchups and really whether the Brewers can outslug the Cubs and whether the Cubs can get to guys like Brandon Woodruff and get to guys like Freddie Peralta. And, I mean, they got a great rotation, don't get me wrong, and good pitching all around. The question just becomes, it'll be the Cubs hitting against the Brewers pitching. They say pitching wins. We'll see.